Okay, hi. So Book-It is produced four of Jane Austen's novels, Pride and Prejudice 3 times, Emma, Persuasion, and Sense and Sensibility. And Book-It's love affair with putting Austen on stage began 15 years ago when writer-director Marcus Goodwin, who is a British transplant to Seattle, approached me and Jane asking if he could adapt and direct Pride and Prejudice. I'd never read it, and when I did, I thought, who cares? These girls, all they talk about is who they're going to marry and how rich are they going to get. It is a 19th century elite soap opera. But Marcus brought such an authentic understanding of the material, and the process of adapting a novel to the stage in the Book-It style requires hundreds of hours and many weeks literally living inside the text, paying attention to the many different points of view. So Austen novels are easily translated to the stage. You could just lift her dialogue and boom, but what we like is to preserve and celebrate the author's original voice. And Austen's voice really lives in her narrative. I mean, her observations and wit, that's where the goods are. So for instance, Pride and Prejudice, the opening line, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a man in possession of a single Jane Austen. A single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. And instead of having a narrator say that line, we have all 5 sisters divide that line while they're running around in their petticoats getting ready for the ball, right? So our raison d'etre is to do that, and so what you will see in here in the book adaptation is not just the dialogue, but the characters talking about themselves and each other in the third person. So I have Jen here, and she is going to share with us a little bit from Pride and Prejudice.
She's just received a letter from Mrs. Darcy. Elizabeth's feelings are scarcely to be defined. She began again the mortifying perusal of all that related to Wickham. She could see him instantly before her, and every charm of air and address. Many of his expressions were still fresh in her memory. How despicably I have acted. I, who have prided myself on my discernment. I could not have been more wretchedly blind. How humiliating is this discovery. And yet, how just the humiliation. Until this moment, I never knew myself. Elizabeth decided to draw her stay at Hunsford to a close.
So I also asked Jen to come up to talk a little bit about what that is to be an actor and an adapter in the book style. So take us to the next place.
I was afraid to come up here and just talk about my love for Jane Austen because that seems superfluous tonight. As I said, I love her. It's sort of needless to say, I bought my ticket to come here. Thank you. I go back over those books over and over and over again. So acting in and adapting her work allowed me to process and appreciate her words in a different way. As an actor, to become a part of it from the inside and examine it in that way. And and roll those words around in your mouth, which are very difficult to say. I challenge you to go home and read aloud any chapter. It's almost like Shakespeare. It's difficult. And as an adapter, to look at it, to arrange her words in a way not only to get the dialogue and the language across because it's so beautiful, but to, as Myra says, allow her voice to come forward. Who do we choose to say this line? Who do we choose to say this narrative, this part of the narrative? Because that is what it does and what is important and allows us to hear Jane Austen's voice. So quiet characters, we do this by using, as you heard, narrative, descriptions of people, of places, scene changes. We give them to different characters. So somebody like Anne Elliot, who is quiet in the book, can become very verbose in a book
before I directed Persuasion, Jane's adaptation, I watched the BBC version of it, and I was amazed at how timid she is portrayed in that version, because of course everything she says, everything that exposes her fiery passion is in the narrative. So on stage, when you have Anne Elliot around other people in the scene, she doesn't say very much. But as soon as they leave, Anne Elliot comes forward with all of her thoughts and feelings and observations. Yes. So
Let's bring a little bit of that.
There we go.
So we're going to read a scene between Anne and Mary, which starts out with a description of Anne leaving Kellynch. And the reason I gave this line to her was to show not only her sadness and disappointment, but her shame as well. It was painful to look upon the deserted grounds, and still worse to anticipate the new hands they were to fall into. To escape the melancholy of so altered a village, their removal was made together, and Anne was set down at Uppercross Cottage in the first stage of Lady Russell's journey.
Oh, so you are come at last. I began to think I should never see you. I'm so ill. I can hardly speak. I've not seen a creature the whole morning.
Having inherited a considerable share of the Elliot self-importance, and being prone to fancying herself neglected and ill-used, Mary's being out of spirits was almost a matter of course. I'm sorry to find you so unwell.
I do not think I ever was so ill in my life as I've been all this morning.
Anne said what was proper, and inquired after her husband.
Oh, Charles is out shooting. I told him how ill I was, I assure you.
Well, you soon will be better now. You know I always cure you when I come. How are your neighbours at the great house?
I can give you no account of the Miss Musgroves. Not one of them have been near me. It did not happen to
A little further perseverance and patience and forced cheerfulness on Anne's side produced nearly a cure in Mary's.
Oh, she could soon sit upright on the sofa. And began to hope she might be able to leave it by dinner time.
Then, forgetting to think of it, she was at the other end of the room.
Oh, beautifying a nosegay. Then she ate her cold meat.
And then she was well enough
To propose a little walk. Where shall we go? I suppose you will not like to call at the great house before they've been to see you. I'm so often appalled by their bad manners.
I have not the smallest objection on that account. I should never think of standing on such ceremony with people I know so well as Mrs. and the Miss Musgroves. To the great house, accordingly, they went.